Hi, I'm Fred Hayden from Nashua Outdoor Power Equipment. 2 locations, Nashua, New Hampshire and Amherst, New Hampshire on 101A. Today we're going to talk about a chainsaw. Basic starting, operation, what the components are on the chainsaw to try to get you familiar and give you a resource if you forget when you leave the store, whether it be our store or someplace else, and hopefully you can look back on it. So let's start. This right here is a Husqvarna. Most of your chainsaws have the same features. You might have a Stihl or a Husqvarna or Echo, Jonsered, Craftsman, but they're all going to have pretty much the same features. So we'll go through this saw, but you can hopefully apply some of these tips to whatever you have. This right here is a chain guard. It's just a protector. The teeth on these should be pretty sharp. So this here will protect you from cutting yourself in transport or in storage. So we'll take that off. We have the bar and the chain. You can see the bar is upside down, but in a later segment you'll see that we like to flip the bar every time we take the chain off to give it even wear. This side of the saw we have your bar nuts and your chain tensioning screw. Over here we have where your bar oil goes and where your two-stroke mix goes, your recoil starter assembly, your primer. Your saw may or may not have one of these. On the back of the saw, Husqvarna uses, there's a kill switch here, but they also have a choke. The choke, you pull it out to choke it and put it on high idle, push it back in and take it off choke, leave it on high idle, and the stop switch to turn the saw off. This here is a safety device so that your hand has to be on the handle before you grab this here, which is the trigger that increases the throttle on the saw. Last but not least, we have a compression release. The larger saws are going to have these. Smaller saws don't have as much compression, so you won't need these. This just makes it easier to pull the saw over when you're starting. And this is a chain brake. It's a safety device so that if you're nosing into your work and it kicks, it's going to stop the chain so it doesn't before it gets into you or does any damage. By the way, we want you to read all your owner's manuals to get familiar with your saw and your safety manuals. Read them closely, take the time, it's really worth it. Before we go out to use the saw, a couple of basic things. It should come set up, or you might be buying your saw and having to set it up from the store. If you come to a full service dealer, most of the time they're going to prep the saw, set it up for you, put oil, gas in it, start it, bring you outside and show you how to operate the saw. This right here is because, everybody's nervous when they're buying their product, and it's when it gets home to your house is when you'll learn the different characteristics of your saw, and you can always look back on our website, NashuaPower.com, and maybe figure out how to, if you forget anything, this will help you, give you some tips. All right, so I want to show you. This chain is about at the right tension right now. They say in the owner's manual when you pull the chain up, you should be able to reveal 3 or 4 teeth. So it's a pretty tight chain. All right. When you start using your saw, these here, I'm going to loosen this to show you, but when you start using your saw, especially when it's new, or the chain is new, even if you put a new one on, you probably should check it every 5 or 6 cuts or at first, because your chain is going to loosen up. Your chains stretch when they're breaking in, and most likely you're going to end up with a situation like this. That's bad, because when your chain gets loose, you want to stop and tighten the chain up. When it's like this, there's a chance that the chain can come off the bar. When it comes off the bar, it can either come up and hit you or damage the saw, or also the main thing that it's probably going to do is damage these drivers. That's the piece underneath that drives by the clutch. You'll get little burrs on there, and then when you go to try to put your chain back in the bar, it'll go in tight, and it'll cause excess wear on the bar if you do get it in there and get it to run like that. So we want to make sure we tighten the chain up, which means you might, if you want to wear gloves when you're doing this so you don't catch yourself, that's a good idea, but I like to hold the tip of the bar up and tighten this tensioner. Okay, till I get the proper tension, and then snug up the bar nuts. Okay, they don't have to be super tight. You want them snug You don't want to rip the studs through the case or cause damage that way. Just make sure you get them nice and tight. This here is a scrench. Probably going to come with your new saw. They call it a scrench because it has a screwdriver on one side and a socket wrench on the other. This here is for the spark plug, and this side here is for the bar nuts. So, good little tool to use in the field. You can use your own socket set or screwdrivers if you have them at home. Alright, so that'll go over setting that. The chain brake, you want to make sure when you start this, you start it with the chain brake off so that the chain is free. Also, which I didn't discuss, I don't know if we can zoom in on this, this has a tensioner here. A lot of chainsaws, especially with the older models, your chain tensioner is going to be behind the bar. It still operates the same way, but you just tighten it back here before you tighten your bar nuts. The other style that I don't have out here to show you is your E-adjuster, which basically is toolless. They have one plastic nut to loosen the bar nut, and then you have a thumb adjuster that you tighten up to tighten the chain, and then tighten up the bar nuts with that plastic twist. So it's just a different style saw, but I prefer this style right here. I think it holds better tension. Alright, so now that we know all the components of the saw, we want to put our gas and oil in the saw. You can use a scrunch to open these up if they are tight. Your bar oil, which this is bar oil. This is a premium bar and chain oil. There are a couple different weights. You don't see as much anymore, but in the wintertime they use a thinner weight oil so it flows freer in the colder temperatures, and in the summer it's going to be a heavier weight oil to protect better. They come in quarts or gallons, and they're typically cheaper when you buy them in the gallons. This here is two-stroke oil. Always use a premium two-stroke oil. There's a lot of different companies out there selling different oils, and obviously in this day and age when oil is very expensive, you tend to want to use a less expensive oil, but you should make sure you use an ISO, LE, GD rated, or a JSO, FD or greater oil, because it burns completely. Alright, this oil will burn completely with the gas. A lot of the cheaper oils will build up in your crankcase. They'll also build up inside the rings, make the rings sticky, and you won't get the life out of the saw or the trimmer or the blower that you expected or that the manufacturer suggests. So a good oil, make sure you use a good oil. This happens to be Echo. Husqvarna makes it. Most of your John Deere, most of your premium brand products will have their own oil. All right, and a good gas can. Good gas can is important. The new gas cans, they're EPA certified so that they do not let the vapors out into the atmosphere. Even your lawnmowers and your newer products, they have starting to come through with recirculation vents so that they don't vent into the atmosphere. This particular gas can we favor because it has a nice easy pour system where you can tip it wherever you want, get it lined up with where you're going to put the gas, place it in the hole, and then you can depress the button and start filling it. When it gets to the proper level, it'll stop chugging gas, and you can just release the trigger, remove it, you shouldn't have any spillage. Okay. Don't mix too much gas, oil mix at a time. You only want to have your gas hanging around for about 90 days. Biggest problem we have these days is bad gas. On anything we have, gas goes bad a lot quicker than it used to. Stabilizer is a good thing to use, comes in many different brands, but use a fuel stabilizer. It would help preserve your gas in the can a lot longer. Alright, so I'm going to fill up our our gas oil mix here, make sure the gas cap's on, put our bar oil in here. This one here has an oil adjustment so that you can increase the oil that comes out onto the bar, alright, or decrease it. They can cut, you're either cutting hardwoods or softwoods. If you're cutting hardwoods, they put a lot more heat on the bar. The larger saws are most likely going to have a bigger bar, and if you bury the bar, you're going to generate a lot more heat, so you might want to turn the oiler up to get more oil out when you're cutting those hardwoods. Not every saw has them. Some of them have are preset. It's not a necessity, but that's what that is underneath there.